Since the beginning of time, the age-long argument has been whether man gets to control his future or not. The answer is yes and no. Man gets to control his future by the choices he makes. As an individual, a third party can alter the future of another man by changing his choice slightly. Even if a choice is made a few minutes or a few seconds earlier, this results in a whole new story for the individual and the people who his choice affects. Watch again, my fellow watchers of the multiverse. Join me, Miss Lepart, as we take a look at Season 1, Episode 15. What if Gorr asked Eternity to kill all of the gods? Mobius and Dark Loki discussed their next move while Ned sat down on the floor, still reminiscing about Peter's death. They had a problem. All their realities had been pruned except one, and it was still not enough to feed Dark Loki's power. Mobius had been researching, and he had discovered a way to solve their problem, and most especially his own. When he told Dark Loki his plan, they both smiled and turned to face Ned. When the cosmic beings had discovered their moments around reality, and now they could not get into anyone. They could not, but Ned could actually get into these realities. After all, these cosmic beings had not recognized Ned as a threat. Dark Loki gave his ring to Ned to keep an eye on him, and also granted him some level of protection. What Dark Loki didn't tell Ned was that the ring would allow him to control the mind of the young lad. Ned entered this new reality and smiled. Immediately the ring got into action, and he realized that he was now controlled like the God of Mischief. He looked exactly like Peter Parker. This was exciting. He had to admit, impersonating Peter was something he could do. As he prepared to move, he felt a sudden pain in his head. He could not understand what was going on, but when he heard whispers in his head, he knew the God of Mischief was up to no good. In seconds, Dark Loki took over Ned's mind. His spell would ensure that Ned would do anything he wanted to. Just about anything. Thor had started getting irritated by these shadow monsters. They were just too much. Thankfully, he had Valkyrie and the other Asgardians to help him. He also had Jane. She had his hammer now, and he had to admit that it made her look more cool. He wanted her back deep down, and he could not deny it. A shadow monster snuck up on Thor while he had his wishful thoughts about him and Jane. As the monster was about to impale Thor from the back, Spider-Man swung in, snatched Thor away. When Thor landed, he looked at the now unmasked face of Peter Parker and smiled. He was happy to see a familiar face, but was confused why he was even here. Suddenly, Thor felt it. He felt Loki's magic, and he spun around looking for Loki, or any manifestation of him. But just as it came, the feeling was gone. Thor was shocked. He knew how Loki's magic felt, because they had been very close, and Loki particularly liked practicing all of his magic tricks on Thor. Thor blamed the feeling of the deep and empty hole he carried inside of him, since Loki had died. He still missed him even after what Loki had done to him. He even tattooed Loki on his back after his death. Casting all thoughts from his mind, Thor jumped into battle with Spider-Man to defeat the last of the shadow monsters and Gorr. Dark Loki sat cross-legged and drenched in sweat. When he pulled out of his meditative state, he gave Mobius the progress on the mission. His idiot brother was close to busting them, and he would have to be more careful in using his magic to conceal Ned's real face and mind-controlling him. Besides, Ned was trying to fight his compulsion. When Dark Loki had finished reporting to Mobius, he sat down and signed. Aware of using too much magic and fighting through the walls, laid by cosmic beings themselves, were finally catching up to him. He hoped that Mobius's plan worked because he was draining way too much energy from reality 1082, and if Ned failed, then they might lose everything. However, Mobius said that he should get back to work. Dark Loki cursed on seeing that Mobius's paranoia to get his family back was clouding his judgment. Dark Loki dragged his body up as he aimed to return to his other state. He had work to do. Thor had gone through a series of adventures since he and the others fought off Gorr and the shadow monsters. They had gone to the gods for help, but they were promptly turned down. Thor was baffled at the arrogance and the lack of love the gods displayed. Looking down at his hand, he smiled. At least he got something out of it, he thought. When they invaded the Optimum City, Thor had just Stormbreaker. When they left, he had both Stormbreaker and Zeus's lightning bolt. He had stolen the lightning bolt after using it to impale Zeus himself. He felt like the real god of thunder now. They had ditched the Guardians of the Galaxy and Korg, but Spider-Man for some reason still stuck with them. He had tried to get rid of the kid, but he was too insistent on saving the kids. Looking at the boy, he smiled. If only there was more selfless heroes like him. Thor prayed to the stars that they would be successful in their mission, rescue the kids that Gorr captured, even as they summoned the Bifrost to take him, Jane, Valkyrie, and Spider-Man to the Shadow Realm that Gorr helped them captive. Thor had a very bad gut feeling about the Shadow Realm, and he was right. There was a trap. Valkyrie had deduced that Gorr lured them here with the kids to capture Stormbreaker. Gorr had swiftly overpowered them, and now Valkyrie was gravely injured. Thor gave no second thoughts about as he summoned the Bifrost to take them to safety. This action also turned out to be a mistake. Gorr captured Stormbreaker. When Thor landed safely with the others, he discovered that it was not only Stormbreaker that was missing, Spider-Man was missing as well. Thor wasted no time in using Zeus's lightning bolt to teleport himself to the Shadow Realm, but not before warning Jane not to come after him. He had a really cool idea of bestowing the power of Zeus on all of the children to enable them to defend themselves. But when they arrived in the Shadow Realm, he met a morbid and horrific scene that destroyed all of his plans. All of the children were dead, and currently Gorr was about to impale Spider-Man with the Necro Sword. Using his rage and anger, Thor lashed out lightning at Gorr, saving Spider-Man. Thor took one last look at the bodies of the children and thought he sensed a kind of familiar magic, but he had no time to confirm as Gorr swung the Necro Sword down on him. Thor was brought to his knees. Jane Foster sensed that something was wrong with Thor, and as she was about to power up Mjolnir, she felt a vision gradually fading. She was losing consciousness, and fast. A memory came to her mind at the last wince of her consciousness, dangled in the balance. Peter Parker had given her a cup of coffee before they went to the Shadow Realm. With a tear she shed for Thor, all went dark in her mind, as her body slowly transformed into golden dust that was carried away by the wind. Thor was still in shock by what he had just saw. Spider-Man had displayed godly powers, and combined with Zeus's lightning bolt, they had been able to destroy the Necro Sword. There was no hiding it now. He knew who the powers belonged to. He was right all along. Spider-Man was Loki, or an agent of his. Thor stood up to confront him, but suddenly the two of them, along with Gorr, were pulled into Eternity's chambers. Gorr was rapidly dying. The Necro Sword that was keeping him alive had been destroyed. Gorr looked on as Thor and the other disgusted gods traded words and blows. He was quite surprised when Spider-Man turned on the kids and killed them all, until he sensed godly powers emanating from him. The killings were then justified in his mind, as the gods were ruthless and had no love for their worshippers. The sight of the disgust God killing the children brought back the memory of his daughter, Love. With the pain and agony of losing her brought back afresh in his mind, he made his dying wish to eternity. He wished for all of the gods to die. Thor stared, fading away, as eternity granted Gorr's wish in tears. He cried out to Loki, his brother, and asked him the reason for all of this havoc. A portal suddenly opened into Eternity's chambers, and before Thor faded into nothingness, he saw a strange man emerging from the portal, and Loki inside the portal. The Loki he saw was not his brother. The Loki he saw had 3 eyes. The Loki he saw was dark and evil. As Thor faded away completely, he was relieved because it was not his brother that caused all of this destruction. It was something more horrific. Mobius was the strange man Thor saw. Using the ring Ned wore as an anchor, Loki was able to open a portal to Eternity's chambers. Loki released Ned from his compulsion, and Ned immediately looked in horror at all he had done. he had killed the children. This was not what he had signed up for. This was completely wrong. Mobius wasted no time in making his wish known to eternity, and it was swiftly granted. He was filled with extreme joy and emotion in the reunion between him and his family. He had suffered in his inhumane things. He had to endure the unbelievable things too, but finally he had reunited with them. It was worth it, he said in his mind, as all of them, along with Ned, entered the portal back home. So you could have your family back, Dark Loki said as Mobius met him. Mobius responded accordingly, and said that now his wife and daughter were back, they did not need to continue their mission. At that moment, Dark Loki began to speak of the possibilities they could accomplish if they only continued with their mission. But Mobius would hear none of it. He was done, and he meant it. With a sign, Dark Loki whispered that he wished it would not come to this. He raised his hand, and immediately Mobius began to gasp for breath. Mobius fell to the floor. Few seconds later, lifeless, and Ned witnessed everything. And that is going to be What If Season 1 Episode 15, If Gorr Got His Wish. That being said, if you guys do enjoy these videos and want to stay all up to date with the latest content, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. Anyways, as always guys, thanks for tuning in and have a fantastic day.